But I'm not going to do anything in terms of the great powers bestowed upon a president of the United States. I want the process to play out. I think that's the best thing to do, because I'd love to see Roger exonerated, and I'd love to see it happen, because I personally think he was treated very unfairly.
There, our president today, and his first comments after Roger Stone received a 40-month sentence this afternoon. Prosecutors originally recommended 7 to 9 years, but of course, Attorney General William Barr, he intervened, and now Stone is getting half of the time those prosecutors wanted, but still real time behind bars. And by the way, the 4 prosecutors who were working on the case when Barr then intervened, they all resigned after Barr got involved. Stone, he was convicted of 7 federal charges, including lying to Congress and witness tampering. He actually threatened to kill a witness. Now, during the sentencing today, the judge called what Stone did, quote, a threat to our most fundamental institutions, to the very foundation of our democracy. Judge Jackson also spoke about some of the politics surrounding the case without mentioning any names. Quote, the dismay and the disgust at the attempts by others to defend his actions as just business as usual in our polarized climate should transcend party. Any attempt to interfere with the efforts of prosecutors and members of the judiciary to fulfill their duty should transcend party. Now, the interference she's talking about, it obviously came from the Attorney General William Barr. His actions caused a bipartisan group of more than 2,500 former Justice Department officials to call for him to resign. They wrote an open letter. I now read a portion of it for you. A person should not be given special treatment in a criminal prosecution because they are a close political ally of the president. Governments that use the enormous power of law enforcement to punish their enemies and reward their allies are not constitutional republics. They are autocracies. I want to bring in one of those former federal prosecutors who signed that letter, Roland Riopelle. And Roland, I want to get in a moment to what is going on behind the scenes at DOJ, you think, and where this might play from here. But first, I played a clip in the beginning where the president, of course, thought one of his friends unfairly treated, but he went farther than that. Here's Trump talking directly about the foreperson of the jury. Again, an American citizen, a regular citizen who was doing jury duty. Here's our president.
It's my strong opinion that the forewoman of the jury, the woman who was in charge of the jury, is totally tainted. When you take a look, how can you have a person like this? And she's, I guess, from what I hear, a very strong woman, a very dominant person. So she can get people to do whatever she wants.
I should say, first of all, this is an African-American woman, and usually that shouldn't matter at all. But with this president and the context that we just heard, I think it's telling. But Roland, also, they knew, meaning Stone's attorneys knew, that she recognized herself as a Democrat. She ran for Congress in a failed bid. They had peremptory challenges if they wanted to remove her from the jury pool. They didn't, and they accepted that she went on the pool and showed zero evidence whatsoever of trying to bias the process in any way, shape, or form here. For the President of the United States to now go after a juror, I don't know where lines are anymore, but my God.
Well, yes, Richard, it's disgusting. You know, I have every reason to believe that the jury forewoman upheld her oath and did as she was required to do by the judge and by the law. And there's, as you say, no evidence at all that she allowed any bias to influence her behavior or her decision.
That said, Roland, and maybe I'm just looking for silver linings, I thought today was a good day for justice in the Justice Department. I thought if people bothered, and I strongly suggest they do, to read what the judge said, who excoriated Stone and made it clear that those who aided and abetted what he did are not going to be on the right side of history. I know people were looking for a longer sentence, but 3.5 years is real time. I felt that there was a line drawn, and maybe they shamed Barr at least into standing down for the moment at least, but I think it happened. And moreover, I don't think Trump's going to pardon Stone before November, not because he respects justice, but because he knows or people told him, I should say, if he does pardon Stone, the next day he's going to be subpoenaed by Congress to go testify, and he'll have to, abide by that subpoena. So there's a downside for Trump to act on his worst impulses.
Yeah, I agree with you, Richard. I don't think Donald Trump will pardon Stone until after the election, because I think he won't do it because he'd be afraid that pardoning Stone now might have a negative impact on Trump's chances. I think what we'll see happen is Stone make a series of applications to the judge to put off his surrender date to the federal penitentiary until sometime after the election, so that Trump will have time to pardon Stone before Stone has to do a day in jail. I think that's what's likely to happen here.
The letter you put your name to, and I should mention, this was not some partisan letter. You had people that were for Republican and Democratic administrations from both political parties. Extremely strong, and we've played for others also what Mr. Ayer wrote, who went even further, talking about, we're approaching a banana republic. He, the former Assistant Solicitor General under George Bush. What is going on for not just the alumni of the Justice Department, but also some of the current folks behind the scenes? We mentioned the 4 prosecutors who resigned. We mentioned, by the way, the judges who were having an emergency meeting that got postponed, but nonetheless, that hanging out there. What does the public not know, Roland, as to how close to a breaking point people are that have seen an institution and a rule of law that they've believed in for their careers changing radically before their eyes?
I think, Richard, we're very, very close to a full autocracy. The Justice Department itself was always a wall between the president and the Constitution, and was a brake on the president's power. And it's clear now that the Department of Justice is not functioning in that way anymore. We hear from the news reports that any investigation relating to the Ukraine and to Mr. Trump has to be approved through Mr. Barr. And what that means is that the Southern District, which was pursuing investigations of Mr. Trump, is probably at this point completely defanged and now a lapdog of Mr. Trump and Mr. Barr. We see the Federal Judges Association, which I'm very proud to say was established by the judge that I worked for after going to law school, as a kind of union for federal judges to gain strength from being together. We see that they want to call a meeting, and I think it is to sort of join hands with each other and reassure each other that we are going to be the last restraint on presidential power, and we'll see if Donald Trump manages to steamroll them next.
I think I know your answer on this, but I'll ask anyway. William Barr. We obviously have shared the interview that he did with Pierre Thomas over at ABC, where he talked about the unhelpful nature of the president's tweets. But it really, at least to me, and maybe I'm so cynical now, but it seemed to be, hey, I'll take care of it, Mr. President. Just don't send the tweets because it's making me look bad, that I'm basically taking orders. I got the cue. Do you have any reason to think that this isn't just posturing, that he could really step down and walk away? Although I don't know what would replace him, frankly, but nonetheless, do you think it's an empty threat, or do you think it's real?
I think it's an empty threat. I think it's all posturing and play acting, Richard. I mean, shortly after Mr. Barr made that complaint, the press revealed that, in fact, he had defanged the Southern District and was now in control of all investigations relating to Ukraine. And every time Mr. Trump tweets, it gives the press something to look for and look at, and that is shining a light on what Mr. Barr is doing, which is not good for Mr. Barr or the president.
This is a scary time. Hopefully, all the worst fears aren't realized, but the one branch we always thought we could count on in this partisan age is now arguably as bad, if not even worse, than the other two, and who would have ever thought we could have said that? But that's where we are right now. Roland, I promise we'll have a more optimistic conversation one of these days, but every week it seems we keep getting let down again and again by the people that we think will be the final line of defense.
Yeah, Richard, at this point, the only defense for the country is journalists and the federal judiciary. And I wish they had more allies, but that's what we got right now. And hopefully we can win the war with just those two.
All right. Roland, thank you as always. I do appreciate the time. All right, when we come back, we're going to switch gears. Shockingly, another very high-ranking official in the Trump administration has just been canned. But wait till you hear why. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with Russia, election meddling, and Donald J. Trump. Stay with us.